There are a few new Nintendo Switch 2 stories I want to cover with you all today, starting with some big sales news out of Japan, where Nintendo Switch 2 has now officially sold over 3 million units, and the time at which it has done this in is pretty outstanding. And while we are talking about an interesting market as we look forward towards 2026, so far Nintendo is just cleaning house in Japan, and in fact, it's just barely now becoming available on retail store shelves. We also have some brand new compatibility fixes for Switch 1 games when it comes to Switch 2, and I'll go through all of those new updates with you guys. Divinity Original Sin 2 Definitive Edition from Larian Studios just got a surprise Switch 2 edition drop today, and if you own this game already, it's a free upgrade. If not, it is available on the eShop. And then from there, one of the big Game Award announcements that was a standout one for me, Mega Man Dual Override, should actually be getting more news soon from a recent report. Bethesda comments on some of the Skyrim Switch 2 edition issues with input lag. And finally, the recent Tomb Raider release on Switch and Switch 2 has kind of an explanation of the version of the game we received, as well as some promises for additional patches in the future. So we're going to break down all of this information. Before we do, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on your bell notification to join Sunbro Nation if you're new here. And we're going to first kick this off right over at My Nintendo News, where you can see the following article, which outlines Japan. Nintendo Switch 2 has now sold over 3 million units. And it says games data lover Pierre 485 has reported that the Nintendo Switch 2 has now sold over 3 million units in Japan after a mere 27 weeks after launch. This makes the Nintendo Switch 2 the fastest selling video game console in Japan, beating the likes of the Game Boy Advance, which sold 3.17 million units, and Sony's PlayStation 2, which sold 3.11 million units. The Nintendo Switch 2 has sold more than double the Nintendo Switch console sold in the same time frame, and you can see the number of weeks and the Switch compared to the Switch 2. It is absolutely on a tear over in Japan, and obviously a big thing that did indeed help out with Nintendo, and not only just being extremely popular in Japan, as they really own that section of the world in terms of gaming, but of course Nintendo did do like the region locked Switch 2 for locals over there, that you can't play international games on it, but you get it at a much more discounted price when they region locked it. The economy is very different in Japan. They obviously wanted to target a different price point there. I wonder if we would be seeing it sell quite a bit quicker globally if we had a lower price point like that, like what Japan does with their region locked version. But nonetheless, you can also see this supporting article in terms of how well it's doing from My Nintendo News as well, where it says Japan Nintendo Switch 2 is finally now in stock at many retail stores. And it says the Nintendo Switch 2 has proved to be a lucrative product in the land of the rising sun, with availability being scarce and near impossible to get one without a pre-order or using a lottery system. Now it has emerged that Nintendo Switch 2 stock is widely available at many retailers in Japan. Genki reports that the demand for the system remains high, with some people having to queue to obtain one. It seems Nintendo has managed to produce more systems, and hopefully this will continue into the Christmas shopping season. So unlike the US market and probably globally, where you can pretty easily walk in and find a Switch 2 on any retail shelf at any major retailer, or just order it online, that has not been the case in Japan at all. And of course, we are seeing sometimes retailers sell out as we're in the holiday shopping season now, but the restocks happen pretty quick and rapidly here, and it's really not hard to find a Switch 2, which is nice, because you might remember in the lead up to this console's launch, we talked about Furukawa's comments and, hopefully them combating scalping by actually really meeting market demand and flooding the store shelves with enough stock. We didn't know if Nintendo would actually do that, because historically game console launches, that's not what happens. We see almost the first year, sometimes if it's a popular hot item like the Switch 2 is selling so well right now, that you're paying scalper prices the first holiday season potentially, if you just have to have one and you can't find one anywhere else, and then you see that continue like it's a hot ticket item for scalpers. Not the case with Switch 2. We have actually seen Nintendo really hold up to their promises there and deliver enough stock to really meet largely the consumer demand around this product. So as long as it's easy to find and nobody's paying inflated prices, that's obviously good, and we will just hope that we don't see any kind of price adjustment to the SKUs of the Nintendo Switch 2 with all of the RAM supply craziness that's happening due to AI and all of that. So we'll have to wait and see how this all shakes out for the long term, but definitely promising results out of Japan right now for Switch 2 sales, and we should have relatively soon, coming up this week, maybe even new data on the month of November and Switch 2 sales in the US market. So we will probably be reporting on that as well. Okay, next up from there, we have Nintendo fixes more games on backwards compatible list on the Nintendo Switch 2. And a couple of these actually kind of stand out here. So it says Nintendo's been working alongside third-party developers to ensure that Nintendo Switch games work properly on the Nintendo Switch 2 console. The Kyoto-based company has revealed that a number of original Nintendo Switch games have been fixed on the Nintendo Switch 2, including the mighty Resident Evil 4 and Miitopia. Sadly, there is one game which the company has specified isn't working correctly when played on the Nintendo Switch, and that is the colorful 3D platformer A Hat in Time. The latest lineup of games has now been fixed as follows, and you can see Blade of Darkness, Game Dev Story ++, Little Nightmares Complete Edition, Miitopia, OG Yugi, Resident Evil 4, Solid Void, Sports Party, Streets of Rage 4, and Venture Town. So some more notable ones on the list of games this time around. So I did want to highlight that with you guys, because if you are waiting to play any of those, or you are noticing issues in compatibility with any of them, you should now be able to obviously make sure your Switch is on the latest firmware and all of that, because oftentimes that's how they push through those backwards compatibility fixes. But you should be able to boot those up and now enjoy them in a more stable fashion than what they once were. And I don't know where they're at on the total list of games, but I know it's getting very small. We're getting down to very low numbers of games that are not compatible or have known issues on the Switch 2 when it comes to backwards compatibility, which is obviously a good thing. They're continuing to work towards making that list a number of 0 games that are having issues, and obviously it doesn't get there overnight, but if you're kind of a later adopter to a Switch 2 and not there right at launch, you probably won't even notice any backwards compatibility issues with the original Switch library, period, which is nice. So from there, Divinity Original Sin 2 just got a surprise Nintendo Switch 2 edition. This comes to us over from Nintendo Everything, where you can see, as of today, a brand new Nintendo Switch 2 edition of Divinity Original Sin 2 Definitive Edition is available. Larian Studios just came out with this version on the Nintendo eShop. Compared to the original Nintendo Switch release, it features a higher resolution and enhanced frame rate. Below is an overview of the game, so while you guys can see the trailer on screen here, I will read through the description. From the creators of Baldur's Gate 3, experience the world of Divinity in this epic adventure where your choices shape fate itself. The divine is dead, the void approaches, and the powers lying dormant within you are soon to awaken. Choose your role in a BAFTA-winning story and explore a world that reacts to who you are and the choices you make. With 5 races to choose from and an adventure playable solo or as a party of up to 4, lay waste to an oppressive order in a world afraid of magic. Become the god of the world so desperately needs. Divinity Original Sin Definitive Edition is the most complete version of the best-selling Metacritic must-play RPG. So this is a cool out of left field announcement that nobody really saw coming. And in fact, I wonder if this leads any credence to the idea that, yes, we will probably be seeing Larian port one of their bigger, more well-known games in Baldur's Gate 3 to Nintendo Switch 2, because I do believe that game will indeed make it to the system. It's a question of probably when, not if. And this kind of shadow drop announcement that they were able to upgrade Divinity Original Sin 2 for Nintendo Switch 2 edition definitely confirms that they obviously have a Switch 2 dev kit, and I would just suspect that if they're already messing around with Switch 2 dev kits, that they're probably working on Baldur's Gate 3, but that will no doubt take more time. We also got at the Game Awards the new Divinity trailer, which was extremely dark and graphic. Let me tell you, it was pretty crazy. But if you look at the visuals, that one not confirmed for Switch 2. It is, I think, one of those games that may get announced later, just like some upcoming Tomb Raider ones that we'll talk about in a moment. But I did want to point out, in case if you were interested in picking this up for the first time, over at the Nintendo eShop, it's kind of interesting because there is a Switch 2 version now available for $49.99. But if you own the Switch 1 version, it's available for a free upgrade. So interestingly enough, until January 8th, the Switch 1 version of the game is $24.99. So do not make the mistake of buying the Switch 2 version on the eShop, because you can technically do that. Go over to the Switch 1 version, buy it for $24.99, which is 50% off right now, and then the upgrade pack is $0. You will get that upgrade completely free. I don't know why the Switch 2 version does not have a sale to it attached as well. I mean, the fact that you can literally pay double for this game by accident if you just go to the Switch 2 version and don't look at the Switch 1 version in the eShop is kind of crazy. But anyway, wanted to point that out in case if anybody's new to this game and wants to pick it up now that the Switch 2 version has been confirmed and has better resolution and frame rate. And if it's a game you want to check out, pick it up for half price. Don't pay that full price $50. Okay, Moving on from there, one of the bigger announcements for me personally out of the Game Awards was, of course, the fact that we're getting a new Mega Man release, and it will be almost 9 years at that point in time. Yeah, it will be 9 years because it was actually 2018 when we saw Mega Man 11 release, and we are getting Mega Man Dual Override, and we may be able to expect some more news on this game sooner than you think, because you have here Rockman Corner. There's more coming sooner than you think in Mega Man Dual Override reveal. And you have here one of the big surprises at the Game Awards is that Capcom has been working hard on a brand new 2D Mega Man adventure, which is titled Mega Man Dual Override and is scheduled for release in 2027. It seems as though we should expect more information on the game soon, as Rockman Corner's owner Proto Dude says that there's more coming sooner than you think when talking about Mega Man Dual Override. This is something a few of us have known about for a long time and has been a very hard secret to keep, but there's more coming sooner than you think. There's more coming sooner than you think relates to Dual Override. So yeah, that's going to be cool. I think they're probably going to do, a marketing blitz for this game. It seems a little bit early to ramp up the marketing, so maybe they have some kind of like early access playable demo in the lead up to it. I mean, that definitely seems like a tease of something kind of large for it, and I would expect this to be an early 2027 release, because you don't typically show off a 2D action adventure game like this so early on. Because, naturally, this is not as big as one of those 3D open world projects that take forever. So I do expect it early 2027, probably first half for sure, hopefully first quarter. But the fact that we're getting more information on that soon definitely has me paying attention, let's say, because I am so ready for a new Mega Man game. I still wish they would do something with the X franchise personally, bring back Mega Man X and do that. But nonetheless, just anything new Mega Man at this point, after waiting since 2018 to play something fresh in the franchise, it's game for me and a day one pickup automatically. Moving on from there, Bethesda still investigating input lag on Skyrim on Switch 2. Suggests turning gestures attack off. And you might know, since the Switch 2 edition of Skyrim has come out, it has been found that this game is far from perfect, let's say. And Bethesda actually released a statement on it here that says, Bethesda finally released the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim on the Nintendo Switch 2, and fans have been experiencing problems with the game, including bugs, input lag, and more. Bethesda has taken to its official support page to give suggestions to those who are experiencing input lag. Their suggestion, they say that you need to go to settings, gameplay, gestures, attack, and toggle this to off. It seems to be a quick fix, but you might want help while Bethesda gets around to fixing the game. So yes, Bethesda does definitely need to do some performance patches here. It's a shame the game doesn't run at 60 FPS. Kind of expected it to maybe hit that target with it running that on other consoles with the Anniversary Edition and everything, but nonetheless, Switch 2 definitely looks far better post-update. But if you were experiencing input lag, until Bethesda gets around for a patch, at least there is a way apparently to kind of get that running smoother and noticing less input lag if you just follow those steps and disable gesture attack in the settings. So hopefully that helps some of you out if you're going through the Switch 2 Anniversary Edition of Skyrim currently. Now to close us out here, another game that may be getting patches very soon. You have Tomb Raider promises to receive free improvements on the Switch 2 coming soon. Patches with more improvements are coming, and you have a few weeks ago we saw the surprise release of Tomb Raider Definitive Edition on Nintendo Switch and Switch 2. The Lara Croft reboot came to both consoles with a version that, although functional, is far from what the Switch 2 could offer. That's why Squire confirmed that they will be adding improvements to the game soon. So you have the quote from the interview here. For the Switch 2 version, we didn't just raise the resolution, we used the new hardware capabilities to go up to a stable 60 frames per second, while some of the PS4 and Xbox One's more complex graphical features were deprioritized to keep that performance solid. The result is a beautiful, playable version that's fantastic in the hands. We believe that performance and fluidity are at the heart of a portable experience. And it says here, an explanation like that makes a little more sense to the result of this version, but does not take long to finish off by adding what many players expected, that they will apply improvements to the game through patches over time to guarantee the best possible experience on both the Switch and Switch 2 version. So it was technically something that they wanted to make sure this was a dual release on both consoles, and because of that, they did indeed deprioritize some of the PS4 and Xbox One's graphical features just to make sure they hit that solid 60 FPS. It sounds like with patches and things, they will continue to make the visuals somewhat better, and we may notice this more on par with those previous gen versions as opposed to some of the texture stuff that's been spotted in this game. But the big question mark for me really remains some of those games we saw at the Game Awards that were missing the Switch 2 logo. Like obviously we got some big games confirmed, Capcom bringing Pragmata to the console. Well, will we see more studios with some of these announced games like pop up with the Switch 2 logo later on? I am hoping that's the case. It's obviously not confirmed, but whenever you think about Tomb Raider getting, you know, a 2026 and 2027 release that we saw teased, I would certainly hope that those find their way to Switch 2 and maybe we just see one of those logos added in at a later date. But nonetheless, if you bought Tomb Raider Definitive Edition for your Switch 2, you now know to expect some future enhancements from the studio and things like that. So let me know your take on all the different stories we talked about today in the comments down below. What do you think about Switch 2 just dominating the sales chart in Japan and literally just on a tear as the fastest selling console ever, crushing all types of previous record holders and stuff like that? What do you think about the new backwards compatibility updates, Divinity Original Sin 2 Definitive Edition? Are you interested in that, or do you already own it in your Switch 1 library? Is your hype levels like mine for the upcoming Mega Man game? Are you enjoying Skyrim on the Switch 2 with the Anniversary Edition? And do you think that Tomb Raider Definitive Edition for the Switch 2 is a good playable experience currently, or are you hoping for more updates? And do you think we'll see Tomb Raider 2026 and 2027 make their way to Switch 2 in the future? So make sure you share all your thoughts and feelings in the comments down below before you leave, regardless if we agree or disagree. Also, make sure you like, subscribe, turn your notification bell. And with that, I've been Sunbro, you've been Nation. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.